What's up, everybody? My name's Chris with A Brush of Knowledge. I'm going to be talking to you today about why it's a good idea to buy used cars over newer cars. So I'm not talking 3 or 4 year old used cars. I'm actually talking proven old cars. So me personally, I drive a 2002 Honda CR-V. And that's actually worked out really well for me because I haven't actually had to spend a lot of money on it. Obviously, when you're buying an older car, there's a couple of things that you need to look into. I'll get to that eventually, but right now I'm just going to be talking to you about why I bought it. So I actually did a lot of research before I made the purchase. You don't want to be buying some rust bucket that's not proven or anything. And when you're buying something 10 years or older, it's actually all the information that you need to actually make that purchase confidently. It's already out there. Everybody already has gone through the issues. Any issues that should have happened or would have happened have already happened. So you can just go on the Consumer Reports and figure out exactly how the car ran over that 10-year period. And if you buy something that's under 300,000 kilometers, 150,000 miles approximately for you American viewers. So if you buy something under that, then you already know what happens when that car reaches that 300,000 kilometers. I use 300,000 kilometers as a benchmark. That's mostly because in Canada we have a lot more snow, so there's more wear and tear on the engine. So the engines don't last as long. So usually at 300,000 kilometers, the transmission's going to go, if it's an automatic transmission, of course, it's going to go at 300. So you want to get those replaced, those things. If they haven't been replaced already, then you want to look into the older models that have been out there for a while in a similar climate that have lasted for longer than that. Because the last thing you want to do is be buying expensive transmissions, and especially a lot of the older European or Asian model cars. It's hard to actually get the parts for a lot of them. The reason I actually went with a Japanese car, Honda, is actually because Honda has a very, very strong presence in Canada, and there's thousands of CR-Vs out there with the exact same specs that I can actually go out and buy parts for my car. So instead of, if the transmission dies on it, instead of spending $4,000, $5,000 on a new car, I can go out and get a transmission for $800 that's been rebuilt, and then throw that in my car, about maybe $1,000 for labor or something. I'm walking away with a brand new transmission in my car for under $2,000, which well beats the idea of getting a new car. There's no reason to spend $5,000, $10,000, if you can actually get a car for that cheap on a brand new thing that has just as much life expectancy as one of these older, more proven models. So a Honda CR-V, it also has a very strong consumer rating. So when you're actually looking into buying it, a lot of people have gone for thousands of kilometers beyond what the specs actually say the transmission will last, and it's been fine. All you have to do is you have to find a person that took care of their car well enough for it to last longer. You might have to pay a couple of bucks. I actually spent $2,500 on the CR-V to get the entire thing, but it was ready to be certified right there. Because in Ontario, you only needed a safety certification. Now, once I brought it to PEI, I ran into a couple of problems. They actually have different regulations on what certificates you need to have. So there's also a motor vehicle inspection here that I wasn't aware of until I moved here. But with only $2,000 extra put into it, the car's working perfectly. The brakes are all changed. All of the fluids have been replaced. It's a perfectly well-working car now, and it sounds amazing. whenever you start up the car, it just starts in one turn. There's no issues. I haven't had any issues with stalling on the side of the road or anything. I actually drove all the way from Ontario here, which is 1,800 kilometers, and I had no issues. I was actually able to go over 130 most of the way, 140 in some areas, but you know, the cops asked, I didn't do that. No, what are you talking about? But basically, the car is completely highway ready, even though of that old age. The old age actually just adds to the or depreciates the value a little bit more. And if I wait 5 or 6 years, the car hasn't depreciated more than the kilometers that I put on it. So you could find a fully working Honda CR-V for $3,000-$4,000 that it has 100,000 more kilometers than mine has on it, and you're just getting a steal if you buy one that needs a little bit of work and then it's in perfect working order. Another reason why I buy older cars is actually a environmental reason. So you might say, oh, you know, the older vehicles, they burn more gasoline and they may have less fuel efficiency. But if you actually think about it, when you're throwing an older car in the scrapyard and getting rid of it, instead of fixing it up and maintaining it, you're creating so much more waste, and they're gonna have to mine all of those materials again to be able to make a new car. And newer cars, because of the digital components, right now I'm actually in a Ford Transit for work. This car actually has a lot of components that need copper and other things that are resources that just aren't out there. It's not as easy to find that stuff, and you have to recycle a lot of it, and only a certain amount of it is recyclable as well. But if you buy an older vehicle, especially one that has no digital or anything like that, maybe it has a replaced radio, but the radio isn't what's causing any problems. So by maintaining this vehicle and keeping it running for longer, I'm actually helping the environment out by reducing the amount of waste that is accumulated from my transportation. And because I'm not driving a lot, I actually drive a lot with the work vehicles, I don't need the reliability to be driving 400 or 500 kilometers a day. There isn't that dependency on a vehicle, so I can get away with having a much older vehicle that a lot of other people would look as a liability, but for me, it's a perfect asset to have, to be able to transport myself and to be able to save money in the long run. Another thing that is really great about buying an older vehicle is that you're limited to spending the money that you already have, because there isn't a way of financing vehicles other than short-term loans that you can get from the bank. Then you're actually having to spend less money on buying this vehicle initially, and that saves you money in the long run. Not having to finance a vehicle, you don't have to pay interest on that. Maybe if you were trying to build a credit or something and you had the disposable income, but for a lot of trade workers, there isn't that disposable income to be able to constantly make more and more payments. And if a car doesn't last you the full amount of time that you need, or the full amount of time that the loan takes, then you're losing out on a lot of money when you have to pay for something that doesn't exist anymore. Say you get into a car accident, God forbid, you know, you end up losing that $5,000-$6,000 car that you just financed, and now you're sitting there with no money. You have a payment to make every month. What is it, $300-$400 a month, and you don't even have a way of getting to work. So that is a lot more risk, taking out that loan, than if you were to just buy a cheaper vehicle and then fix it up over time. The risk that it's going to break down is so minuscule to what happens if your new car breaks down. because a lot of the newer components that they're putting into cars, especially if it's a newer model or a brand new release, then they don't have proven facts about it, and not all the kinks are worked out of the vehicle's specs. So you could be buying something that has faulty components, and if that takes you off the streets for a week, unless you have a way of being picked up by your boss or something, and then you're leaving it up to the employer to be able to get you to work and back, and that's never a good position to be in, especially in the trades where you're replaceable. You're basically stuck with these large payments, and you might be off work for a week, or 2 or 3, and now you have to make this big payment and you still don't have a vehicle. Whereas maybe I take 1 day off to get it fixed, and because it's an older vehicle, I'm not expecting them to repair any body damage or anything like that. I just want it to look decent and work just as well as a new car. And as long as I constantly keep up to date with the oil changes and basic maintenance, I'm saving a lot of money in the long run. And just going back to the gas mileage as well, a lot of people might think that having a newer car is going to save you a lot down the road on gas prices. But it depends on what size vehicle you need for your job. When I had a truck way back when I had my own company, I was spending over $100-$200 every 2 weeks filling up the tank, just on the tank being filled up every month. And now, basically, because I have a large vehicle as well, a SUV, but I'm not driving as far because I'm working for somebody else, which they provide a vehicle, which is amazing, and every company should. I only pay about $50 every 2 weeks, or less than that, on filling up my tank. And that's commuting to, from work, and going to the gym, and doing other things, which, I wouldn't have been able to afford a lot of that. So, that being said, hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and you want me to keep producing more videos like this. And leave a comment down below asking any questions or having any comments, and I'll reply to every single one of them. And yes, if you're hearing that in the background, that is hockey. I am Canadian, so just part of life.